Welcome to the Chelsea Roar, the Chelsea podcast by the fans for you, the fans. As always, hosted by me, yours truly, Ian Kelly. And today we're bringing exactly what we preach. It is another Chelsea fan show. And today I am joined by Mr. Jason Gibbins, who is a journalist, lifelong Chelsea fan, Chelsea pitch owner, member of the Chelsea Supporters Trust, and a former forum rep as well. And you're pitch owner and Chelsea Supporters Trust. So you've got your claws right in there, my friend. I like it.
Right in there. How you doing, Ian? Thanks ever so much for inviting me along. This is great. Much appreciated.
It's my pleasure. It's cool doing these kind of shows with Chelsea fans and old school Chelsea fans as well, because obviously at this stage, everyone knows my background. I grew up here in Ireland, being a Chelsea fan since I was basically 10 years old because of my dad. So it was it's always cool to talk to you all reliables who kind of kept the club alive through its dark times, through its okay times, and now once again great times. So you've seen a lot, I suppose, in your career as a Chelsea fan.
Yeah. I mean, we're lucky, aren't we? We've seen it all. Literally seen it all, and not many fans of many clubs can say that because I mean, I sort of started going sort of 1980 was my first game. Family goes back to mid-50s. My dad started first going in the mid-50s.
Nice.
So born into it, had no choice. So obviously sort of through the 80s and the second division days, and narrowly avoiding the drop to the third. When our current position was nothing but a pipe dream, and then we've seen it grow and grow and grow and grow, and it's been a wonderful journey to be on.
100%, and there's a kind of a funny little story that I thought when I was doing my research here, because you got to do that when you do these here podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there is a kind of a funny one here that I was reading, and I kind of just wanted to touch on it because I wanted to really gauge your reaction to it. You once rejected an offer to become the editor of the Chelsea Matchday program. So, two questions, double barrel question. What era was this and why?
It was about 2008. I think 2007, 2008, something around that time. And I saw it advertised, and on paper, I'm a journalist.
Sure.
And at the time, I was editing a regional newspaper in Oxfordshire, and was very much enjoying that job. But then I saw an advert for the editor of the Chelsea programme and magazine, and it's when you're a journalist, it's a job you apply for. So it was a great crack, actually. So went down and had an interview, and to my surprise, I got offered the job. Had an interview at the Bridge and then got offered the job, which was a bit of a sod, really, because it gave me a really big decision to make. And so all of a sudden I had to be really grown up. I had to sort of act my age and be really, really grown up, because I would have walked, I'd have thought I'd have walked on broken glass for a job like that, and to be that involved in the club and to have a job like that.
How old were you at this time?
Mid-30s, something like that.
Was this Ken Bates era, was it?
No. It was Roman's era.
It was Roman's era. Okay. Jesus, I made you sound older.
No. Yeah. So that was Roman's era. So it was all very good. And I mean, on paper, absolutely dream job. But I had to be grown up about it. And the package didn't quite add up, despite it being in Roman's era.
I was going to say
I wasn't going to be on. I wasn't going to be on Lampard or Terry's money, unfortunately. The money was okay, but I live up in Northamptonshire, and it would have been a commitment to either up sticks and move down or commute. And it sadly it didn't add up. So after a few sleepless nights, I had to be really, really grown up about it. And it ultimately it came down. If it had been any other club, it was an absolute no-brainer. It was a no. The package wasn't there, and it wasn't the right job at the right time. But Chelsea was something of a complicating factor. But no, that was the story, and I had to just eventually say, nah, I can't do it. I can't justify it. But it still hurts, still cry.
So if the great Kevin Costner lookalike Todd Bowley came along now, the salary might be a little bit different. You know, might just be a little bit different.
Well, you know, I'm always open to offers, Ian. You know, you never know. Never say never to these things.
You know, the Russians are good. Like in some ways, they'll give you some good money, but you know what? Those Yanks, they'll work you to the bone. They'll make you earn it. They'll make you earn it. That's a
no,
cool.
it was a great opportunity, great offer, and it was a really enjoyable experience. But yeah, I had to be grown up. You know, if I'd had no family or anything like that, I'd have done
Sure.
it, you know, in a heartbeat. You know, but no, it wasn't quite right, unfortunately.
Well, needs and wants must, right? So
absolutely, absolutely.
Now, obviously, speaking of you being a journalist and a great journalist at that, you've also got a great book. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about the book?
Oh well, thank you very much. Yeah, very kind. So yeah, I've had a book published through the very good people at Gate 17 through Mark Worrell, who I owe a debt of gratitude to.
Mark's been on the show. Mark's been on the show.
Have he? Brilliant. Brilliant chap, brilliant guy.
Great guy.
And took a punt. I only really knew Mark through Twitter and stuff like that. I didn't really know him in person. But yeah, I mean, long and short was in lockdown when we suddenly found ourselves with lots of free time on our hands. It wasn't something I ever intended to do. It wasn't something I've got any plans to do. But suddenly, without sort of commuting for 2-3 hours a day or not going to football on Saturdays, I found myself like everyone else with lots of spare time. And I started sorting through just loads of all my old Chelsea programs and fanzines and stuff like that. And then from that, I just started putting a few words down on paper really about the 90s, and started to grow. And suddenly I've got something I thought, this is turning potentially into something that I'm quite enjoying. And I dropped Mark a line and he said, yeah, keep going, give it a crack. And when you're ready to let me have a look at it, send it my way. And I did, and he very kindly published. So it's called For Better or Worse, Life, Love and Supporting Chelsea in the 90s. It's a bit of a two-parter. So it follows every decade through the 90s. So it starts in the 1991 season and ends in 98, 99. But interspersed between all the season chapters is a game-by-game focus on the 97 Cup run, because the basis of the book, the title For Better or Worse, I naively on New Year's Eve 1996, as it ticked into 97, my girlfriend said to me, when are you going to marry me? And I naively said, I'll marry you, sweetheart, when Chelsea win the cup. And it had been 27 years, odds were stacked in my favour, all that sort of stuff. And it was just a throwaway line that I never thought I'd be held to. But of course, 97, we went on that glorious cup run. And obviously, no spoilers, we won the cup. So there's that story in the book, and various life stories built around that. And it's a case of, you know, did I, didn't I, would I, wouldn't I, and see how it all panned out. So yeah, For Better or Worse, Life, Love, Supporting Chelsea in the 90s, on sale now via Gate 17 Books and on Amazon. Thank you very much.
100%. You can.
There's the punt.
Yeah, you've already given me the link, so of course I'll make sure that the link is in the description below.
Brilliant. Thank you. And I mean, just a chance for me to say, if anybody is watching who's bought it, you know, thank you. As I say, it was not something I ever had any intention of doing, but it just sort of grew and grew. And then suddenly, you know, you've got a book published, and that's great. And I'm just so hugely grateful for everybody who's bought it. I'm getting quite a nice lot of responses to it, some good reviews of it, which is absolutely, you know, humbles me. It really does. And so thanks to everybody who's bought it so far. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. And I guess, spoiler alert, you follow through on the deal.
Well, you got to find out. You got to buy it and find out.
Exactly.
You know? I am married. I am married now, but whether it's to that one or not is.
Look, Steve, you know, I'm a salesman. I got it. I got you covered. I got you covered. Go and find out if this man is a one-woman guy or if he is a player about town. Yeah. No, 100%. And it's a funny thing with the women, isn't it? Because they don't just marry us; they marry into the club as well. It's they've no choice. It's
yeah. You know, it is, and I think that's it, isn't it? You know, because you sort of, whenever you marry anybody, everybody's got their own interests and their own things, and you know. But it's for me, you know, it's like Chelsea was, you know, they as I now say to the current Mrs. G, you know, they were there long before, they might be there long after, you know, and but that Chelsea is the one lifelong thing, you know, in my life. And as a family, it's sort of 3 generations now, and it's always a constant. It's such a big part of who we are, and as a family and as a life, and and that's the same for pretty much every Chelsea fan, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess it goes for football fans in general, because
Yeah.
there's certain, we always think our club is the best, but we happen to be right. I'm just saying. But one of the things that, when I think about it, you go through your lifespan and you have different little projects that you get into, you have different little hobbies that you get into, different little phases that you get into. And, music will always stick with you, I suppose, but you go through different phases of it. Depending on your kind of if you're like me and you don't kind of do adult well, you tend to stick to the heavier rock metal stuff, and you just stay that way forever. And I'm proud to say that I do. But your football team is the one kind of hobby / passion / interest / love that you never really lose if you're a true football fan. So
you can't, and I know, I've been very lucky over the years. I've sort of been going fairly regularly since I first went in the 80s, but there's been times over life where some seasons, you dip away a bit. I had a bit of a sort of spell. I still got to games and sort of the period when the kids were born and things like that, but certainly had to pull right back. I wasn't doing them in anything like the number I was, but always there, just because, you might have little spells in life where you don't go as much, or you're not as involved day to day. You've got those relationships and you've got those friendships, and you'll still feel very much a part of the club. And like you say, it is the one constant. And I think I certainly did, and quite a lot of Chelsea fans would have done, that period this summer, sort of tail end of, obviously when we went into the sanctions were put in place, and we had that brief spell where the future was so uncertain. None of us knew for a few days what was going to happen. Thankfully, we very quickly had a billionaire's beauty parade where people were lining up, and you kind of were reassured that things were going to be okay one way or another. But for that sort of when the sanctions were put on Rome, and for those first few days, we had no idea what was going to happen to the club. But I knew one thing, whatever happened, I'd still be going. I'd still go. I'd still be involved in it. It'd still be my club. We're very lucky at Chelsea. We've got the pitch owners, and Stamford Bridge has got that element of security as a result of that. But if we'd have been, if we'd have suddenly found ourselves, just to total extremes, but if we'd have suddenly found ourselves in the Southern League or whatever, and having to build from the bottom again, I'd have still been there, and thousands of others would have still been there, and would have still have had a great crack, would have still had a great laugh, and would have worked our way back through, and that's what it is. So whether you're Club World Cup champions, European champions, or whether we're down the complete other end, I know that it wouldn't change it for me, and it would just be a new experience. But thankfully it didn't come to that. So let's hope it never does. But you just know that if it did, doesn't matter. It's Chelsea, and Chelsea.
Yeah, really cool little side story, I suppose, because a lot of listeners probably don't know the first time I was at the Bridge, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. I kind of am, but it's a good story. I actually went during the sanctions. That was my first time at the Bridge, even though I'm in, the later end of the 30s now at the moment. I never had an opportunity. It didn't arise with life, even though Ireland is only, across the way. But I had actually purchased tickets and paid a shit ton of money for these tickets, by the way, for the Brentford game. It just so happened that, I was able to get these. It was originally meant to be me and the missus going. We were going to make a big long weekend out of it in London. And, then the sanctions came. Everyone was wondering, are the original tickets going to be honoured? We didn't know this. And it was proper panic, And of course, my Liverpool mates and my Man United mates were winding me up. I had a bit of a go at them on the old WhatsApp groups and stuff, but they were only teasing. But luckily, through the grace of some divine power, we were able to kind of to go. And it turned out, this is why my missus is the best, to be honest with you. She actually said, you know what? I just want to see London. Why don't you bring your dad? You know what I mean? Because my dad had never been. So
lovely.
I brought my dad to his first game, and as I said, we paid a shit ton of money for it. But I wanted the first experience, even though it was still with the sanctions and stuff. I had booked again before sanctions, pre-sanctions. I was kind of blessed actually that I had got it in maybe a month or two before.
Oh.
So I'd actually booked the Millennium Hotel as well.
Right.
So the reason I'm telling you this story, I know it's your show here, but I just
no, it's fascinating.
And I was like, I don't really care as long as I get to see the game. I'm staying in the Chelsea hotel. Stamford Bridge is going to be my back garden for a weekend. Like, how cool is that? You know what I mean? So we got there late from Dublin. We got a late flight because we were in work and stuff. And we got into the Millennium, and I swear to God, in the taxi, as soon as I just start seeing, the Chelsea pubs along the way, as soon as we pulled up and turned into the bridge, I just froze. And it was funny because my missus was getting frustrated because the taxi driver didn't know where he was going. We were like, Stamford Bridge, and he was like, where? And we were like, are you okay, man? It's Stamford Bridge. So getting there, I was just like flabbergasted, seeing it under the lights. And we got in, checked in, got some food, and it turned out I asked the girl at the desk, apparently, now you probably know this as well, apparently there's only one part of the Millennium side that's actually attached to the bridge that you can actually see a little bit of the stadium, and that's on the top floor.
Right.
It's the only part that you can see a little gap.
Yeah.
And it's the screen. It's the screen that you can see.
Yeah.
Who got that room?
Yeah, fantastic.
It was like, I looked out and I was like, there's the bridge, like lit up. It was it was amazing.
Yeah.
And even though it wasn't the usual match day experience in terms of, thousands of people running around the hotel, it was very, very quiet. The only thing they were able to offer was breakfast. There was no bars open. I had good old Jack Daniels with me though. So but even though it wasn't, because people were telling me, locals were like, it's much different, when we're sanctionless, Frankie's Bar and Grill and all wasn't open. It didn't bother me because we got up the next morning, had the breakfast. We went around, took a little walk around the stadium, around the sides of the stadium. Yeah. And who do we run into then when we come back into the hotel? My dad gets to meet one of his heroes. Chopper Harris is there.
Oh, superb.
Just got to shake Chopper's hand, gentleman. Yeah. And then we ran into Paul Canaville, who I knew from a previous podcast years ago. And now me and Paul are very good friends. He's been on the show previously. So it was just an amazing experience. And then, of course, match day, my dad and myself over getting a little bit tipsy pre-match over at the Butcher's Hook. So, but an amazing experience. I just thought I'd share that.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And do you know what? That's great because it's just such a beautiful place, and it's about the memories, and that's what it is with the bridge. And hey, going to the bridge for the first time when it's not a sellout, I like that. Certainly wasn't when I first went in the 80s. So seeing it in a different way is great, and it's some special stuff and great memories. I sort of got myself into I did a tweet the other day. And I shouldn't have done it. I should know better. I should grow up and know better. But just a quote tweet. Somebody put a tweet on saying about that the ground Stamford Bridge is what's holding the club back. It's got no pull for.
Oh, I've seen it. Yeah, ridiculous.
Megastars and stuff like that. And I put a little tweet just sort of saying about sort of it's a place where we've experienced triumph and despair, and friendships have been formed, and families have united, and all that sort of stuff. And it sort of went a bit mad, and got lots of comments and lots of quotes, but I genuinely believe it, and I genuinely mean it. And when I was sort of just talking earlier about it's still Chelsea, whether we're in the Premier League, winning the European Cup, or whether we ended up finding ourselves after sanctions sort of plummeting through the leagues. It's to me still Chelsea, and it's still Stamford Bridge. And of course the ground's changed. The ground's changed beyond recognition. It's a completely different ground. The only
will do again.
Yeah, and it will do again. And at the moment, from my first ever visit, only the East Stand survives. And so, if you'd have been there in a time machine, from one day to the next, you wouldn't recognise it necessarily. Yeah. But it's not about that. It's still Stamford Bridge. It's to me, it's the Fulham Road. And again, new buildings have gone up and that's changed. But when I walk down the Fulham Road with my kids, who are now sort of 21 and 18, they've now grown up. They're third generation. Every time I walk down it, I think of, my dad, who's sadly no longer with us, walking down it in the 50s. And and it's that same walk, and it's that same place, and it's been the only ground. We're one of the very few clubs, probably the only club, I don't know, but have only ever played at one ground. It's not, the clubs have been at ground for 100 years or whatever, but they might have started somewhere else. We've only ever been Stamford Bridge.
Yeah.
And that's hugely important to me, hugely important, really special. And of course the ground changes, of course the atmosphere changes, and the people who go change, but it's still Stamford Bridge, and it's SW6 1HS, and and I might be a sad old man, I don't know, I might be too attached and too emotional, but that to me is what it's about. And whenever your first visit is, it's a really, really, really special moment. And if you've got Chelsea in your blood, it's a huge part of your life, and you'll be back very soon, I'm sure. Continues to come again.
Yeah, listen, when it was funny, when I woke up the next morning, and then even when the match was over, we were still there for a couple of days. When I was walking down, I was like, I'm meant to be here. It was something. It was like I'd been there all my life. It was just, that, because when you watch it on TV, and I was a fanatic. I bought all the magazines. I knew exactly the layouts. I even went to the cemetery to check it out and looking at it from the side at the cemetery and stuff. It was just like I felt at home there. And you'll be glad to know I am now a Chelsea member. We have the Blanchardstown Supporters Club over here, which I'll be joining as well. So I will be over there a lot next year. So I'm sure me and you will meet up and have a kipple or two.
Well, I'm only a member as well. I'm not a season ticket holder these days.
No, I won't be.
Get down to as many games as I can as a member. So let me know when you're over, and we'll try and have a cheeky beer.
Oh, we will arrange, or three,
or three, absolutely. It'd be super. Because when I was sort of writing the book, sort of the 90s were my era. Really, that was the year when I was following Chelsea. First, sort of 89, 90, started going on my own with a mate, sort of old enough to go without my dad. And so I started going on my own sort of about 89-ish. Sure. And then sort of I grew in the 90s, was doing my A levels, and throughout that entire decade, I grew from boy to man, I suppose, if anyone could still claim I am a man yet. But, went through the whole growing up process, and it would start, too young, start that decade, too young to go into pubs. And I looked about 12, so I'd never got them if I wanted to. But as as the decade went on, you suddenly you get to the age and you're going into pubs, and then you're going in different pubs, and and a lot of them are still there. A lot of them are gone, sadly, but a lot of them are still there. And when I was writing the book, it's bringing all those memories back of the pubs we went to, the Beer Engine, the Stargazy, the Firkin, I think the Slug and Lettuce was the first one, which is still there by the tube.
Yeah,
that's when we started drinking. But you move all around, and it's the area. That's what it's about, rather than the actual four stands necessarily.
Yeah, it was actually a funny little story. I hope I don't get beaten up when I go over next time for this, but I'll tell it anyway. Because obviously in Ireland, I'd be kind of a Celtic guy, you know what I mean? And then obviously in Rangers. So I know there's connection with Celtic and Rangers. Now, as you grow older, over here, it's not as, it's a football match. And it was funny, when I dropped my dad back to Heathrow, I came back and I went in. The missus knows the story now, but she didn't at the time. She was getting ready. I went back into the Hook the next day. Because the Rangers Celtic match was on, I had a cheeky point. I thought to myself, she wanted to go on a walk to do the whole sightseeing. So I went, I said, you know what we'll do? I said, we're walking down that way. So on the way, I'll say, do you want to go in and get a bite to eat? And we'll go into the pensioner. So as we're walking down the pensioner, I look in and I see the game is on. I'm like, yes. Yeah. And then I also see that it's a lot of bald guys wearing Rangers jerseys. And I thought to myself, I'll just keep that one to myself and keep walking. Listen, they're all lovely. They're all lovely. No, they're all lovely. In fairness, there wouldn't have been any trouble. I know.
You'd have been fine.
I know. It was just funny though. It was kind of like, I don't want to put the missus in that situation where she's afraid to talk with her Irish accent.
I've never really sort of been into the Chelsea Rangers thing, so I'm Chelsea and that's it.
And look, I get it.
I don't have any preference either way in Scotland for anybody really.
Well, JT's a Celtic man, so look.
There you go. See.
So you can't come at me, guys. Leave me alone.
That's right. You can't get any bigger than that. And but I mean, that's obviously been kicking around sort of since the 80s, and it used to be quite a thing. That's
of course.
Less so now, perhaps potentially. I don't know. Not to some, but but yeah, it's always there. But you'd have been fine. You'd have been fine.
There's some guys going right now, I am deleting that Irish motherfucker. I'm not listening to it. I'm like, I'm sorry to offend you guys, but look, I gotta be honest.
I doubt
I gotta
it.
be honest.
I doubt it. Well,
Listen,
from Dublin, I wouldn't expect it to have any other allegiance, really. So,
of course, you know what I mean. Could be Hibs, maybe, but no.
Yeah, true.
Right, I like to do this. I like to do a little thing where I throw people on the spot every now and then.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
90s was my first that was my first era, I suppose, as a Chelsea fan, as a young man. Now, I was born in 84, so I didn't, I don't remember the early 90s group, so much at the time. I do now, having gone back and, pretty much watched every Chelsea VHS that I could get my hands on and old school programs and stuff. Let me ask you, who would be your top 5 players from that decade?
From the 90s. I mean, I was asked this. I spoke to Dave Chidgley on his
Chidge has been on the show.
Chidge, yeah. I saw him. I watched you with Chidge, and that was great. And he asked me something similar, and I said to him, "I'm going to give the same answer." As I said to him,
Sorry, Chidge, I'm not robbing your stuff. I didn't notice.
He asked my number 1, so you've given me at least give me a bit of leeway. So he but my answer is always the same. I'll give you a different answer tomorrow. But the 90s, you go for the obvious, you go for Hullet, you go for Zoli, you go for Vialli, and those 3, I mean,
they're a given, right?
They're a given, but I love so many alongside them, Wisey, who sort of, such a guy, and when I look at the 90s again, when I was doing the book, then I realized 2 players, I suppose, who really survived the full 90s, were Wisey and Steve Clark, and 2 brilliant guys, 2 brilliant players, 2 real Chelsea, absolute Chelsea legends. So there's 5 before I start, but then you've got the others, you've got Petrescu, I adore.
I love Petrescu.
And he when he came in to that whole team, that was a bit of a flick of the switch moment, because he was a player that really suited the Hoddle system, and we didn't get off to a great start under Hoddle, and we were sort of fighting relegation that first season, and in sort of what was that 93, 94, Hoddle's first season, we were sort of bottom 3 at Christmas, but then eventually when Petrescu came in the following season, and we had Terry Phelan coming on the other side, and suddenly we got players that were really playing Hoddle's system, and it sort of moved up a gear, and Petrescu went all the way through the decade. And absolutely adored him, and Di Matteo, and I mean, that's about 10 already. So I can't answer these questions.
No, you're okay.
I just love them all.
I knew this would happen.
The homegrown lads, people like David Lee and Sinclair and Frank Sinclair and players like that. They sort of held their own in a team that was really sort of going places. Lasso and Graham Stewart, and there's so many. John Spencer, I mean, and Peacock. All there.
So everybody.
Absolutely everybody. But we went through some real kind of in that sort of decade, everybody sort of played their part. It was a real stepping stone, to sort of the growth. And I know sort of Harding, Matthew Harding, God rest his soul, came in and pumped a bit of money in, which sort of gave us that bit of an extra additional boost when Hullets and Viallis and that were coming in. But there were some real stepping stones throughout that entire decade, where you had at the start Wise and Clark, and who were loyal and steady and stayed, and they were supported by some good coming through the youth. And then you had Peacock come in, and you had Rocastle come in, and you had Spencer come in, and they all sort of took us to just the next level. Mark Steen, what a season he had. He had one brilliant season. And they all took us to that sort of that next level.
Mark Hughes.
Yeah, Sparky. And then obviously comes Hullett and Hughesy and all that lot. Yeah. And they took us to another level again.
Yeah.
And we just kept it was a really good building process, sort of from 93, 94 onwards, where each year we made some really good signings. And then we made a couple of, absolute stellar signings in Hullett and Vialli and such like. But before that, we made some, some really good solid signings that just took us on a nice, steady forward path. And the result was, we went on and we won the cup, and we won the Cup Winners' Cup, and it was superb. So that was a lot more than 5. If you want, I can't give you 5.
What a decade, though! What a decade! That's one of my dad's favorite decades. That team, with Vialli. I mean, my God, I absolutely idolized that man. Really, really do. When I
Yeah.
played, I tried to, model myself on his style of play. It kind of failed. So I was
Such
like,
a
what a player.
such a beautiful man, I mean,
Yeah.
I've got, you said you were born in 84. I've got sort of 11 years on you, but so yeah, my first, my primary school years were when we were, sort of bouncing around the bottom second division and nearly dropping into the third tier. But then, my sort of boyhood hero was like
Kerry
sort of
Dixon.
my first hero was Clive Walker. I suppose. So in the team, it was really struggling. He was one who stood out for me.
What a player.
My first ever Chelsea kit. Yeah, my first ever Chelsea kit, when I was 5 or whatever, I had a number 11 sewn on the back for Clive Walker. But then, I've been very lucky as a Chelsea fan, because then that 83-84 team with Dixon, Nevin, McLaughlin, Spackman, Vicky, all of those guys came in, Mickey Thomas and Canaville, and they all sort of came through. And that was a brilliant era as a kid, and I absolutely loved that era. But that sort of peaked and then dipped again, and ended up in relegation at late 80s and then promotion again. But just the 90s, there was that real steady growth, and Chelsea just became fashionable again in the 90s, didn't they? We had the swagger of the early 70s, I suppose, with the signings we were making.
The Italian, we were all wearing the Armani suits and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. The Dutchmen and the Italians, and we just became fashionable again. And, it was just glorious to be a part of, no problem getting tickets week in, week out, home and away, traveled the country with them, and then sort of a couple of seasons doing a few European aways, and it's just, and it was a really, really glorious decade. And as I sort of said earlier, it was good for me because I just grew with the club in that decade. I grew up and and it felt like you were sort of on the same journey really. And special times.
I love it. Well, look, that's a great segue into the modern times. Let's not get into the takeover stuff and all that. We've got that out of our systems. We're here now. The Chelsea Twitterverse, which I tend to shit on a lot of them, and unapologetically so, because I think some of them are just actual trolls, to be honest with you. But the real Chelsea fans that are happy and that are there for the ride, I kept, you've probably seen some of my posts. I kept, promoting patience and like, come on, guys, they're literally only here 2 months, blah, blah, blah. But Todd, the great one, has come true. In fact, I read a great piece today. I believe it may have been Simon Phillips. I'm not too sure. If I get this incorrect, please correct me in the comments, please. I don't want to disrespect anyone. But he's getting a lot of praise from clubs. Man City have been very impressed with him. Leeds were very impressed with him. Barcelona are very fuck Barcelona. These guys aren't going to be here in 10 years the way at this rate.
I wish I knew what was going on there. I've got no idea what's going on.
Apparently Napoli very impressed with them. Like everyone seems to be impressed with Todd Bowley at the moment. There's no BS, just straight in. Okay, really likable guy. It's good to have an owner. As much as I love Roman, it's good to have an owner that does kind of communicate, and you can see him.
It is, and I saw the same sort of comment somewhere today saying that how much clubs are enjoying sort of negotiating with him, and he's trying to do he looks like he's doing everything at the minute, isn't he? He's sorting out the transfers, he's running the club,
over to Barcelona for a meal. I mean,
absolutely. I mean, it's just like, so it's, fair play, and proof will be in time, won't it? It's still early days, but they made some good noises before they took the club, before they all went through. Early signs are promising. They've kind of, held ticket prices for a year. They've knocked the sort of admin fee online, the tax we had on that off the head. So they've made all the right moves, and they've eased into the transfer. No one should, if you expected them to come in week 1 and splash, 120 million on someone, then you were naive. They needed to get a feel for the market and then have a chat with Tuchel, I'm sure, and find out what's there. And the 2 signings are made today. Sterling and Koulibaly. Is that how you say it? Koulibaly is 2 really, really good, solid signings, and I really like that. Just 2 good, real, absolute, down the middle signings, but
very shrewd as well, because I had Ben Jacobs on here a couple of weeks ago, and he wasn't incorrect. We were really high on Matthias de Ligt from Juventus, and once Juventus were asking this, these astronomical prices for, he is a 22-year-old.
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But 80 million for him,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. If
Yeah.
that doesn't work out, you're kind of in a Harry Maguire situation.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
at the start of this, when I started this podcast, the two defenders that I wanted initially were Koundé. And that was only because we were predetermined, we were pre-programmed that we all want Koundé because of what happened last year.
Yeah.
But Koulibaly was one I thought that is a shoe-in, only turning 31, straight in there. You get the boys, Colwill, Ampadu, Chalobah, the young guys to learn from these guys. So to get these two signings in, Raheem Sterling, who's literally only turned 27, not even in his prime years yet.
That's right.
And Koulibaly, both for 80 million.
Yeah.
And what I really liked about Bowley here was he went after Koulibaly, who Juventus wanted to replace Matthijs de Ligt with. So now we've left Juventus in a bit of a pickle where, do they keep him now? Do Bayern pay over the odds? I don't know.
Yeah, no. It's shrewd, and it's good early promising signs. And I think, like I say, my take on it is, really, really just good, solid signings. That are not going to come with any great drama, I don't think. They can fit straight into the team. Should keep us at least at the level we're at. Hopefully take us on to another level. Are they signings that are going to immediately have us challenging City and Liverpool next season? Probably not. Don't know.
Possibly.
But maybe. But it was one of my lads said actually. Certainly with Koulibaly, he sort of said, because everyone keeps saying, "Oh, Tottenham might do next season." Yeah, got to keep an eye on Tottenham. And he sort of said, if I'd have signed him, he'd be going, "Oh, decent signing,"
Trust me.
And I think that applies to both of them,
Yeah.
But whatever, whoever Tottenham signed, I'll end up spursing it up somewhere. But it's So I just think really good signings, really interesting, really promising early signs. And we see where it goes from here.
Well, I'll be honest with you, and I'm not saying this, I'm not crying over spilt milk. Koulibaly is an upgrade over Rudiger because I've watched this boy a lot. Rudiger has been consistent for the last year and a half. Let's be fair.
Yeah.
Not over the course of his whole career.
Yeah.
Koulibaly has been consistent, non-stop.
Yeah.
And don't forget, he's the same age as the supposed best defender in the world, Virgil van Dijk.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really shrewd signing. And I think Nathan Ake coming back in, even if it's 45 million, look, it's not our money. I don't know why fans keep moaning.
Yeah, that's right. I mean,
he's a great player. Sorry, go ahead.
I've got to be honest. I don't know a huge amount about Koulibaly, but I know enough to know that, decent, solid signing. Been linked with him for years. He's never let anyone down. He's highly thought of.
He's a world-class defender.
And he's a world-class, and he's going to do a great job. And I agree. I think with Rudiger, 2 years ago, Rudiger would have gone. None of us would have given the stuff,
Nope.
And but he's had a good 12, 18 months or whatever.
And congratulate him on that.
He's gone. We move on. And we've got a more than adequate, probably better replacement coming in. And same with Ake. I'm chilled about Ake. I think yes, we've done it before. Should Chelsea be signing players that we flogged a few years ago for more than we ever sold them for? It doesn't necessarily look great, but so what? Like you say, it's not our money. If he's now the player that we wanted, and he's developed elsewhere, fine. Nothing wrong with coming back. And again, he's a good, solid, reliable player who will slot in, do a really decent job, never let City down when he's gone into the City team. I was chatting to a City fan who said, always very comfortable. Whenever you looked at the team sheet and Ake was playing, you didn't ever think, oh geez, he was just like, yeah, great, fine, cool.
And he looks like real
good
as well.
And he looks like we've done it, which is always an advantage.
One of the good things I think about Ake as well, and what Chelsea fans need to remember, this is not the previous administration. So Todd Bowley and Clearlake, and by the way, shout out to Clearlake as well, because a lot of people were fearing those guys. The Clearlake guys that are working closely with Bowley have done a great job too, and they're putting their money where their mouth is. So one of the things I will say is that Todd Bowley and co didn't sell Nathan Ake. So regardless of what happened with the previous regime, that's irrelevant now. You know what I mean? It's irrelevant because you're getting a player that can play in DM, possibly. You're getting a player that can easily play in the left-hand side of the back three, but also cover at wing back if needed. A solid player, great in the air, by the way, for a guy who's only I won't say only 5'11", it's still tall. But a lot of people have been talking about the height kind of thing. It's like he is a very, very good jumper. And I suppose the word on the street then is that we're going after a right winger. We've heard Gnabry doesn't want to go because he played 10 games for Arsenal. So, I don't really care about that guy anyway. Rafael Leao from AC Milan looks like an interesting prospect.
Yeah.
It's probably a good time to strike on the Italian clubs at the moment because of the financial kind of predicament they're in. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm going to lay all my cards on the table. It was interesting hearing Broja is over on tour. And it's interesting to see Timo Werner is still there as well, because if I am not too disappointed if we go into the season with Broja and Havertz as our front, options.
I'm
really not.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. I want to see it, and I'm sure it will happen in the next few weeks. It'd be nice to move just a bit of the sort of Edwards unfair, but sort of we could do a shipping 2 or 3 out.
Well, Milan really wants Ziyech, don't they? So that's where we could kind of catch possibly.
But I mean, Ziyech, I still, other than perhaps the Tottenham game last season, I still sort of think Ziyech's best game at Chelsea was for Ajax. But I think he's got the potential. I think he's a cracking player. I'm sort of a bit meh about him at the minute. If he went, I'd be like, okay, but I wouldn't be opposed to him staying. I'm sort of bit same with Pulisic, and
I'm not a fan of Ziyech for some reason, personally. I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
I saw him at the Brentford game. He was right in front of us.
Yeah,
I was in the East as well. First game. And he got shouldered off the ball for that one get. Now, look, I'm not saying he's a bad guy or anything. I mean, he's done some good stuff for us. I just don't think he fits. If you have him in a 4-3-3, possibly in a similar system to what Ajax were in, it's probably a different conversation. But I think if you're expecting to kind of cover at wing back, or sorry, to assist at wing back, it's probably a different story. But I think he's the one that could go, isn't he? Because he didn't cost too much. He's not on astronomical wages. So.
I think that's all a fair point, and he's one of those players that could go somewhere else and, and just absolutely, light up a side, and you could go, what are we selling for? And he could stay with us and not do it. But, I'm fairly chilled about all of them, really. I think that's sort of almost where we got to. We've got perhaps too many players like that, where kind of there's no firm opinion on them from a lot of people. It's they go one, go one over. But I think we'll see what happens. As I say, the transfer so far, promising start. We've got more potential in the pipeline. Let's see where we are in 3 weeks' time when we go to Everton, and then game on. Season up and running, and only time will tell. I think you're sort of saying about Clear Lake and stuff like that. I suppose, and Bowley. It's all very promising so far. The risk of sounding starting to sound a bit old manish here, and I'm sort of urging a little bit of caution. I think 12 months time is where we need to see where their intentions are for the club. This time next year, when next year's ticket prices have come out, and and sort of that's the sort of point where I'll sort of reserve judgment a little bit until then, I think, and see where it goes. But it's a different era now, isn't it? The sugar daddy days are over. They're gone, and but that wasn't always honey and roses. When Abramovich was in charge, we had our conflicts with the board, and and battles over ground and stuff like that. And so it's always going to be the case. But I think let's see where we are in 12 months' time. This season, let's just have let's challenge. Let's see if we can compete. Put a bit more pressure on City and Liverpool at the top. Have a good run in Europe. Get to the tail end of the cups again like we did this year, and enjoy it on the journey.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think this sugar daddy thing is a little bit overrated too, because I mean, in the last 5 years, it hasn't really been the case. I mean, we've been very, very self-sustainable. I mean, that Lukaku money was still a little bit of the reserve that was left over from Hazard money and other kind of sales from Cobham products and stuff like that. So I do think I don't think it's going to be too different. I don't think people would be too disappointed. I have done a bit of studying of Bowley and Mark Walter, who's obviously also a name forgotten. He's his partner with the LA Dodgers, and they do put their money where their mouth is, every season to get big signings in. I think what they're trying to do now, personally, is the Liverpool model, which I do respect. I'm not a Liverpool fan at all, but I respect the model. They're looking. I think one of the most important pieces of business we're doing at the moment as well is the backroom changes. I know the guy who done the day-to-day for Man City is probably the favorite to come in and do that, and he done a fantastic job. Just look at City. And then of course we're talking about Liverpool's former director of football and a couple of other guys in there. So you can see that they're trying to put the pieces in. Scott McLaughlin, that guy needs to be gone tomorrow. I'm sorry. One of the worst scouts I think we've had in history. This guy is absolutely stealing the living, in my opinion. And I think most Chelsea fans' opinions too, to be fair. So those little pieces that they're putting together, I think he's very, very shrewd. They operate, a sports team. They understand the data-driven, model. And I think we're going to look at a system now where if you get all the pieces in that Tuchel wants this year, then going forward a year, 2, 3, you're looking at just picking one or two that you need to replace certain guys.
I think that's going to be the big change, and that's going to be really interesting. The relationships with managers. How's that going to work? If we get off to a bad start, and we've got quite a tricky start, and we don't need to panic if we did sort of drop points in 2 out of the first 3 or whatever. We don't need to panic, and I think that's going to be really interesting when we go through the sort of slightly rocky spells, which we're prone to do. Will they stick by him? And I don't know the answer to that yet, and I don't know if anybody does, but will they stick by him? Will they give Tuchel? Will it be Tuchel's team? Will they give him the chance to make the signings? We all know sort of in the previous regime, players were brought in because of who they are. Sheva and Torres and people like that. Weren't necessarily the manager's choice. And so I think these are all the things that are going to be really fascinating in the new era. Is every player that comes in Tuchel's pick? I think possibly so. The indication so far is WWL saying it.
I think.
I think indications WWL saying it, and then what does happen if we hear a bit of a rocky spell? Are our hire and fire and days over? Don't know. We don't know, do you?
I have a feeling, yeah, because again, that was something I was looking at. They tend to have a lot of patience with the Dodgers, and I mean, like that's probably means a lot for them over there. What I mean? Because that's their sport. So I think they really are impressed with Tuchel, and I think they're looking at a project here, and they've looked at Klopp in particular. And looked at that and thought, right, this is our guy. Like, I mean, they know Tuchel isn't going to give them trouble in a PR sense or anything like that. And, he's respected. And it's about time that the power was put back in the manager's hands, so we don't have this, this dressing room,
But it's all really exciting stuff, isn't it? Because it's a new era, it's a bit unknown. And bring it on, And I love that,
Keep the faith.
I say, like you say, Roman, the Roman era was fantastic, and we're forever in his debt, not literally now, thankfully, but we're in his debt for what he did to the club or for the club. But
there were flaws in that ownership, as you say.
There were flaws in that administration and the way they ran the club and the board that they had and some, and some of the things they tried, and that will always be the case, when you've got every at the end of the day, and the Clear Lake side is sort of one bit of it that makes me just go a little bit just purely because they're sort of there to make money, and so that's why I'm sort of saying a bit of caution, see where we are in 12 months, see sort of what decisions are coming down, but but I know what I do know is that we've got a really strong sort of voice at Chelsea through the fans, sort of said, pitch owners is an absolute godsend, and that's we're very, very fortunate to have that set up and the trust, and they've got a strong voice and they've built a good early relationship with the owners. They went out to build a relationship with all of the bidders, which was a really good positive book to get off, and so I think whatever happens, good or bad, and if they do try anything, then we will challenge, and Chelsea will know, but I think Chelsea fans sort of led we're the first ones to come out, and the Super League stuff was shows what power our support can have, when it acts as a voice, and and I know other fans of other clubs were equally opposed to it, but we were the ones, I mean, perhaps a little bit fortunate timing, we had the game that night, but we were the ones who came out and made that stand and made that statement, and it just all came crashing down on that night, and there's an indication of the power of the support. So don't ever, sort of just, I guess, any owner needs to know that they just can't, take us for the ride, I suppose, and then just constantly assume we're just going to pay more and more and more, but we'll see. I'm sounding really negative. I don't mean to, I'm just saying, I think
that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, let's have a look in 12 months. I've got no worries about this season, particularly, in terms of structures in place. We're making some great signings. We've got some good quality players already in place. We've got a great manager. I think we're set for a good season. I'm just sort of want to see what happens next summer. Well, when they've sort of really got to know the club and where the money's going to come from and where they're going to make those extra revenues, and hope it's not just from us, basically.
Well, let me bring your mood and positivity up just a little bit, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm quite a little analytical creature, and I'm sure you are, obviously being a journalist. But I've noticed, because I've always been a fan of the US sports market. To be honest with you,
I'm not. My US market is very, very poor. So I'm very interested in what
I am. To be fair, I was a pro wrestler at a period in time, so I was always a big fan of the American sports. So big hockey fan, big basketball fan, big football fan. Now I suppose I have to be a baseball fan. The Dodgers, right?
But that Dodgers shirt you got on?
No, it just says LA. Kind of cool. But one of the things that I've noticed, right, and we never fully, and we were really popular in the United States, and that was all down to the Peter Kenyon days back when Roman first came, and then we never really tapped into that market anymore.
Yeah,
and I think that's where it was quite lazy on Marina and Roman's part, that they could have done a little bit more on the commercial side in the likes of the States and in Asia. And one thing I've noticed, and this is where I know my kind of American sports, I know what markets are big. So you'll always find that LA is a huge market because you've got the Lakers, you've got the LA Kings, you've got the LA Dodgers, then you've got Chicago, where you've got the Chicago Bulls, obviously biggest franchise probably in history, and then New York and places like that. So markets are such a huge thing in American sports. And LA being probably the biggest, possibly just behind New York, or maybe on a par, I don't know. But you look automatically, the support that's out there now already, watching them out in the training ground, watching Raheem Sterling come in today.
Yeah, I saw him today.
Taking those pictures, waiting to announce him in LA, pictures of him outside the Troubadour, which is obviously the famous rock venue.
Yeah.
Really, I can see already what they're doing.
All right. So do you think there's enough untapped commercial potential then to sort of not make the match going fans the sort of the focus of revenue generation?
1,000,000%. 1,000,000%. And then the tourism will be a big part of it, then American fans wanting to come over, you know what I mean, to see. But I don't think that will affect us, you know what I mean, too much. I think that they see the market potential worldwide. I mean, look, these guys are self-made billionaires from doing this exact thing. I mean, the LA Dodgers were literally on their backs before Mark Walter and Todd Bowley came in and picked them up, and now they're probably the biggest franchise. And and by the way, they're literally winning everything all the time. So I think they see Chelsea as a sleeping joint. We've heard that so many times over the years, from the Ken Bates era, the Roman era, when Colin Hutchinson was saying we're a sleeping joint. So I really do feel that they have the plan in place, get the stadium done. I think you'll see that come to fruition probably in the next 2 years. I think they know how they can make money. And you can see already the way they're kind of looking at the, the whole Bitcoin and stuff like that. I have a lot of trust in these guys purely because of doing a little bit of research about their about their background and how they built the Dodgers back up. You know what I mean? And we're already
interesting. Yeah, no, it's interesting because I think I've always struggled sort of to see where you can make more money out of Chelsea really as things stand. And yes, you can hopefully put another 10,000 seats underground. But that's going to take time and a lot of money to spend in the first place. The TV deals are shared. And whether they see a potential there, with a change to TV deals, and
I think you'll see sponsorship
streaming rights
from next year on when Tree goes. I have a feeling that they're going to really knock something out of the park, no pun intended. for a sponsorship, and like even having Joe Cole come out and
Yeah,
show
yeah,
the
yeah.
first pitch
Clever.
the other day.
Yeah.
Like having,
Yeah.
you know, Werner and Mount over in the jerseys and kind of familiarizing their fans with our
and
fans.
building those relations. Yeah.
It's very exciting for me, I gotta say. It really is.
Yeah.
That's kind of why I'm
yeah, well, good. I mean, let's see. You know, it is. You know, it's like I say, it's a new era, and it will bit into the unknown. So yeah, you know, let's be onwards and upwards, and don't let gits like me talk it down.
No.
I've got absolutely, you know, and I sort of, out of all of the sort of bidders, you know, sort of Bowley was one of my sort of top two. You know, I was like, yes, you know, I looked at him, and there were people I didn't want.
We don't need to mention names.
You know, yeah. No, there were people I definitely didn't want. You know, and there was 2 or 3 that I was thinking, yeah, okay, I can see some hope there and see some potential there. And Bowley was one of those, and that's great. And you know, and as we say, you know, they've made a really positive start. They've said all the right things, and so we just sort of, you know, see where it goes, I suppose. But you know, hey, listen, you know, you go back. I think we've been spoiled, really. You know, I certainly have. You know,
That's the problem.
I'm sort of, you know, just only just the right side of 50. But I've only really known 2 Chelsea owners. You know, Bates. When Bates came in and, you know, bought the club for £1 from the Mears family, you know, I was, what was I then? 9, 8, 9, something like that. You know, so I've only ever really known Bates and Roman. Me
too. Yeah,
and that's as much as I've known as ownership. So yeah, you know, and you see lots of clubs sort of, you know, who get wrong-uns in as owners, and you see what it does to them. And you know, but you know, Bates was a divisive figure, I think it's fair to say. You know, but he did a lot of good, and he saved the club in some forms, and he put us back into a bit of debt. But you know, on the whole, you know, he had the club at heart, and he sorted out the pitch owners thing, and he saved the ground. And you know, you can't have any real complaints, I don't think. You know, and then when Roman came in, I was saying the same thing when Roman came in as I'm saying today. You know, let's see in 12 months. Let's see what happens in 12 months. We don't know this guy. We don't know what his intentions are. We don't know what his plans are. Fantastic, brilliant first summer. Spend, money. Oh my God, isn't this, you know, we're all giddy with excitement, which was great. But I was still saying, let's see where we are in 12 months and see what his actual intentions are. Hey, they were brilliant. I was wrong. You know, well, I wasn't wrong. I didn't say it would be bad. I was just thinking, let's give it a bit of time.
Skeptical.
To see what happens.
Yeah.
Always have that element of, I'm a journalist, you know, trust no one. Always have that element of suspicion, I suppose. And so suspicion's not the right word this time, but just because I think their intentions are good. And, you know, and I don't think they've got anything, you know, other than positive plans for the club. I just want to see what it means for us, the fans, in 12 months. And, you know, like I started saying on this chat, you know, one thing matters to me, and that's walking down the Fulham with my kids and watching Chelsea, you know, at Stamford Bridge. And if I'm doing that in 12 months' time and 10 years' time, you know, and with a good wind, 20 years' time, you know, fantastic. You know, that's all I want, and I'm a happy man.
Yeah, look, I concur, and that's a great way to kind of close up the show. I suppose as we wrap up, it's worth mentioning that, you know, with Bowley as well, just as a side note, you know, this is a guy who had interest and tried to buy us in 2019 as well. So there's obviously, that's kind of what makes me kind of appreciate the guy a little bit more. He's obviously a fan. He obviously liked the club. He obviously saw the potential. He's already talked about the potential. All you need to do is just watch one of his kind of business conferences when he talks about how money can be made with, you know, sports franchise and stuff like that. So yeah, I agree. Let's wait and see. I'm definitely positive about it, but again, I don't want to have egg in my face. You know, in 12 months' time or 2 years' time, I don't believe I will. But you know,
it's really, I'm more positive speaking. You know, it's been doing away because you've done your research and you know more about the American models and more about Bowley than I do, you know, and that's what I need to do. I need to speak to people like you and, you know, and seek that extra information. And, you know, it's, if you have faith, then, hey, who am I to doubt it in any way, shape or form? I think it sounds
absolutely. Well, look, let's wrap up, Jason. It's been an absolute pleasure. People can find it on Twitter, of course. Yeah, absolutely. It's been fantastic, and don't be a stranger. We will meet in one of the bars very, very soon. Yeah, that's for sure.
Let us know when you're over,
and we'll get you on the show again. We might even do a podcast together when we're over there.
Right, superb.
What tell people where they can find you. Of course, you're on Twitter.
I'm on Twitter, yeah. So at J Gibbins. That's a combination of Chelsea nonsense and a day job. So, I'm riding two very different horses there on that Twitter account, but stick with if you do come along. So thank you. So Twitter at J Gibbins, and then the book is on Amazon. But if you can, rather than giving Amazon their cut, the Gate 17 book site that Mark Wall does. And if you can get to match days, even better, off his stall. The book will be available on his stall. So first home game is now 3 weeks Saturday.
He's at the Bovril Gate, isn't he, as well? So
yeah, so he's pretty much opposite the Tube entrance. So come out the Tube and straight opposite outside the town hall.
Yeah,
got a brilliant selection of books there, from a wide variety of great Chelsea writers. So if you get there on match day, that's the place to go and get obviously my book, but plenty of others too. There's plenty of good ones on there. I saw another one come out today from Chris Wright, who also wrote a really good book about Chelsea in the 90s. So he's got another one coming out today, and
Mark Meehan as well, obviously.
Mark Meehan's a brilliant writer, and Kelvin Barker's got a new book out this summer as well, which is on my summer holiday reading list. So there's plenty of choice there, and that's the place to go and get them.
So, no pun intended, go and bookmark it and make it happen. Not just on your laptop. Spend the money. Let's do it. Support, writers that are doing this for fun.
We don't make any money out of it, but it's brilliant to share the stories, and it's a lovely thing to do. I really enjoyed writing the book. Really, really enjoyed it.
A nice skin on your wall as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. And it's one. If it hadn't gone anywhere, if it had just stayed on a memory stick and I read it again in 10 years, it was something I enjoyed. But I'm very fortunate that Mark took a punt and it got published, and I'm forever grateful for that. And it's opened up doors like this. I wouldn't be doing this without it, and that's been a real treat, a real pleasure. So thank you, much appreciated.
100%. I love it, guys. It's been a pleasure. Jason Gibbins, go check him out. Always has some good takes on Twitter as well. Gentlemen, as
not sure about that.
Well, I enjoyed them. They entertained me. That's all that matters here from my point of view. But guys, remember, please do like and subscribe as we try and grow this channel. Let us know your comments in the comments section. Trolls are welcome too.
I love the trolls. Bring the trolls.
I love it. Come on. And if you got something to say and you really want to put your money where your mouth is, join me on the show. I'm always happy to debate. But no, it's been an absolute pleasure. We are, of course, the Chelsea Roar. We're at the Chelsea Roar on Twitter. We're at the Chelsea Roar on Instagram. Not very active on Instagram, but we do check it. If you want to email the show, and you want to come on the show, you have any suggestions or anything like that, at the Chelsea Roar at gmail.com. And of course, we're at the Chelsea Roar on Facebook as well. So we're covered across all elements and aspects of social media. I'm always happy to talk to a fellow Chelsea fan. I even like opposition fans coming on the show as well, because it's always nice to get a different perspective. But until the next time, Jason, a pleasure, my friend, and I will see you very soon. But
thank you very much. Let's have a beer next season.
That's happening. It's already a date.
Superb.
Me, you, and the two Marks and Chidge, we're probably gonna be blasting the Clash London Calling, probably at 2 a.m. somewhere, reliving our youth somehow, some way, shape, or form.
You're closer to it than I am, so it'll be easier for you.
So we'll be in bed by 10, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been an absolute pleasure. As always, keep the blue flag flying high, keep the faith. And until next time, for me, Ian Kelly, your host, we are over and out.